What would you do if the man you buried was the man you thought you married? That question didn't exist in my mind when I walked into that church. Back then, everything was simple. Painful, yes, but simple. My name is Evelyn Carter. I'm 42 years old, and 3 days ago I buried my husband of 15 years. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The church was silent in a way that didn't feel natural. Not peaceful, not respectful, heavy, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Everywhere I looked there were flowers, white lilies, roses, arrangements so large they almost hid the front pews. People filled the room, dressed in black, speaking in hushed voices, their words blending into a low, constant murmur. And there he was. Daniel Carter. My husband. Lying in a polished mahogany coffin just a few feet in front of me. I remember staring at his face, trying to connect it to the man I had shared a bed with just days ago. The same man who drank his coffee too hot, who laughed at his own bad jokes, who always forgot where he left his keys. 15 years of memories, reduced to stillness. People lined up to say goodbye, one by one. Some cried, some avoided looking too long. Others squeezed my hands and told me how strong I was, as if strength had anything to do with this. I couldn't stop crying, not loudly, not dramatically, just constant tears that refused to stop, like my body understood something my mind couldn't process yet. They said it was a heart attack, sudden, quick, at least he didn't suffer, they told me. But something about it never sat right. Have you ever felt that, when everything sounds logical, but something inside you keeps whispering, no, there's more? I tried to ignore it, I had to. This was my husband, my life, my reality. And then the line of mourners shifted. Footsteps approached, slower than the others. They stopped beside me. I assumed it was another friend, another neighbor, another familiar face offering the same rehearsed condolences. But when I turned slightly, I didn't recognize him. A man in his mid-50s, calm, still, watching me not with sympathy but with something else, something measured, intentional. He didn't say, "I'm sorry for your loss." He leaned closer. Close enough that I could feel his breath near my ear. And then he whispered, "You deserve to know the truth." My heart didn't just beat, it slammed against my chest like it was trying to escape. I turned immediately, ready to ask him what he meant, who he was, but before I could speak he took my hand. Firm, quick, and slipped something into it. Then he walked away. Just like that. No explanation, no hesitation, no looking back. I stood there, frozen, barely aware of the people still moving around me. My fingers slowly curled around whatever he had given me. I looked down. My hands were shaking now. And as I began to open my palm, I had no idea that this small, silent moment was about to unravel everything I thought I knew about my husband. What could possibly make your hands shake at your own husband's funeral? I remember staring at my palm like it didn't belong to me. Like whatever was inside it was too heavy, too wrong to even exist in that moment. Around me, people were still whispering, still grieving, still moving forward in a slow, respectful rhythm. But for me, everything had stopped. I opened my hand. It wasn't money, it wasn't a note. It was a photograph. Small, slightly worn, the edges softened like it had been handled too many times. I frowned, confused at first, turning it slightly so the light from the stained glass windows could hit it properly. And then I saw him. Daniel. Younger, maybe by 10 years, his smile was different, less restrained, more alive. His arm was wrapped around a woman I had never seen before. Not casually. Not like friends. No, this was intimacy, the kind you don't fake for a picture. My first instinct. Denial. Immediately. Oh, this must be old, I thought. Someone from before me, a past relationship. That's normal, right? But then another thought crept in. Why would a stranger hand me this, now? At his funeral. I felt my chest tighten as I flipped the photo over. There was writing on the back. Handwritten, dark ink, slightly smudged. She never knew, M. I read it once. Then again. And again. She never knew. The words didn't make sense, but they also made too much sense. My mind started racing, trying to piece together anything, that would make this harmless. Was I she? Or was someone else? And who was M? I glanced up instinctively, scanning the room, my eyes darting between faces. Familiar faces, friends, family, co-workers. But not him. The stranger was gone. Just gone. No trace, no explanation, like he had never been there at all. A chill ran through me, sharp and sudden. Because now it wasn't just grief I was feeling. It was something else. Something colder. I looked back at the photo, my fingers tightening around it as if it might disappear too. Then slowly, almost against my will, my eyes lifted toward the coffin. Toward Daniel. And for the first time since the funeral began, I didn't see my husband. I saw a question. The gap. A version of him I didn't recognize. And a single thought slipped into my mind, quiet but undeniable. How much of his life had nothing to do with me? Have you ever gone looking for something and secretly hoped you wouldn't find it? That night after the funeral, the house felt wrong. Not empty, wrong. Every object was exactly where it had always been. His shoes by the door, his jacket hanging on the same hook, his coffee mug still in the sink from the morning he died. But instead of comfort, it all felt staged, like a life paused mid-scene. Or worse, like a life I had only partially seen. I stood in our bedroom for a long time, holding that photograph, replaying the stranger's voice in my head. You deserve to know the truth. The truth about what? About who? About Daniel. My chest tightened. And before I could talk myself out of it, I did something I had never done in 15 years of marriage. I started searching. Not wildly, not destructively, slowly, carefully, like if I moved too fast I might break whatever illusion I was still clinging to. His side of the closet first, nothing unusual, suits, shirts, shoes lined up the way he always kept them, then his desk, files, papers, everything neat. Too neat. That's when I noticed it. The bottom drawer. Locked. Daniel never locked anything. Not from me. My fingers hovered there for a second. Then I pulled harder. It didn't budge. A quiet, cold feeling settled in my stomach. Why would he lock a drawer in our house? I didn't have the key, of course I didn't, but after a few minutes, long, frustrating minutes, I forced it open. Inside was a life I didn't recognize. An old phone powered off. A stack of receipts from places I had never heard him mention. Hotels, restaurants, all in a city 2 hours away. And underneath it all, documents, carefully folded, hidden. I picked up the phone first. My hands were steady now, but not because I felt calm, because something inside me had shifted, like I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. When I turned it on, it didn't ask for a password. It opened straight into messages. One contact. Mara. My breath caught. The same letter on the photograph. I opened the thread. And instantly I knew. This wasn't casual. This wasn't old. This was ongoing. Years of messages, conversations layered with familiarity, with intimacy, with a tone that made my stomach twist. He wasn't just talking to her. He was living with her. In pieces. In fragments. In moments stolen from the life he shared with me. I scrolled faster now, my heart pounding again. Then I saw it. One message. Short, final, recent. She can never find out, not after everything. I froze. She. That word echoed in my head. Was that me? Was I the secret? Or was I just part of one? I kept scrolling, my fingers trembling again despite myself. Dates, times, patterns. Trips he had labelled as work. They weren't work. They were visits. To her. To Mara. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't temporary. This was a second life. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, I found the last message he ever sent. 3 days before he died. We need to tell her I can't keep living like this. Tell me. Tell her. Tell who? My heart started racing again, but this time it wasn't just grief or confusion. It was something darker. Because suddenly, his death didn't feel random anymore. It felt timed. What would you do if the only person who could explain everything suddenly showed up at your door? 3 days after the funeral, I stopped pretending I was okay. I hadn't slept, not really. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photograph, that message, that name. Mara. And Daniel's final words looping in my head like a broken recording. We need to tell her. The house felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in, holding secrets I hadn't agreed to keep. That morning I finally decided I needed answers, real ones, not guesses, not assumptions. But before I could even leave the house, I opened the front door. And he was already there. The stranger. Standing on my porch like he had every right to be there. Calm, still, watching me the same way he had at the funeral. No hesitation, no apology. Just presence. My chest tightened instantly. You, I said, my voice sharper than I expected. You don't get to just show up like this. You need to explain what you did, what you gave me. He didn't react to my tone. Instead, he nodded once, almost like he had been expecting this exact moment. My name is Michael Reeves, he said evenly. Reeves. The name hit me before I could stop it. Mara, I said under my breath. His eyes didn't leave mine, my sister. Everything inside me seemed to tilt. No, I said quickly, shaking my head. No, that's not possible, you're lying. That photo, those messages, there has to be some kind of mistake. But even as I said it, I knew. There was. Michael stepped closer, but not aggressively, controlled, measured. They were together for 11 years, he said. 11. Let that sink in. 11 years. I felt something in my chest crack, not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet, irreversible shift. That's not true, I whispered. I was his wife. Yes, he said, you were. Were. Past tense. The word landed harder than anything else. I swallowed, forcing myself to stay upright. Then why are you here? Why now? Why give me that photo? His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes did, something heavier. Because my sister is dead, he said. The words hung there between us. Cold, final. What? I asked, barely able to get it out. She died 2 weeks before your husband, he continued, and her death wasn't simple. A chill spread through me, slow and suffocating. What are you saying? I asked. Michael reached into his coat pocket, pulling out a folded document, but he didn't hand it to me yet. I'm saying your husband wasn't just living a double life, he said quietly. He was trying to end it. My mind jumped immediately to the message. We need to tell her. You mean he was going to tell me? I asked. Michael nodded once. But then he added. And someone made sure he never got the chance. Silence. The kind that feels loud. Oppressive. What do you mean? I asked, my voice barely steady now. He looked at me carefully, like he was deciding how much to say. Then finally. They told you it was a heart attack, he said. Yes, I replied quickly, that's what the doctors said. Michael tilted his head slightly. No, he said, that's what they wanted you to believe. My pulse spiked instantly. What are you talking about? I demanded. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he held out the document in his hand. A sealed envelope. Thicker than I expected. He placed it into my hands slowly, deliberately, just like he had at the funeral. Only this time, he didn't walk away. This, he said, his voice low, controlled, is the truth you were supposed to never see. I stared down at it, my fingers tightening around the edges. Every instinct in me was screaming 2 things at once. Open it. Don't open it. Because deep down, I already knew. Whatever was inside that envelope. was going to destroy whatever version of Daniel I still had left. And for the first time since this all began, I wasn't sure I wanted the truth anymore. What if the truth doesn't set you free, but traps you with something worse? I stood there in my doorway, staring at the envelope like it was alive, like it might breathe if I held it long enough. Michael didn't rush me, he didn't speak, he just watched like he already knew how this would end. And maybe he did. My fingers moved before my mind could stop them. I opened it. Inside papers, official, clinical, cold. The first page was a medical report. I didn't understand all the terminology, not at first, but certain words don't need translation. Elevated toxin levels. Prolonged exposure. Consistent ingestion over time. I felt my stomach drop. No, I whispered, shaking my head as my eyes scanned faster. No, that's not, this doesn't make sense. But it did. Too much sense. Daniel hadn't died from a heart attack. Daniel had been poisoned. Slowly. Over time. Not in a single moment, not suddenly, not randomly. Deliberately. I looked up at Michael, my voice barely there. Who would do this? But even as I asked it, something else was forming in my mind, something darker, something I didn't want to say out loud. Because poisoning like this, it requires access. Time. Trust. Michael exhaled quietly. We don't know exactly when it started, he said, but we know your husband was trying to cut ties with my sister, with everything. My thoughts snapped back to Mara. She died 2 weeks before him, I said slowly. You said her death wasn't simple. Michael's jaw tightened slightly. It wasn't ruled a crime, he said, but it wasn't clean either. A silence stretched between us. 2 deaths. 2 secrets. One man at the center of both. I looked back down at the papers, my hands trembling again, but this time it wasn't confusion. It was clarity. Sharp, unforgiving. There was one final page in the envelope. Folded separately. I hesitated. Then opened it. It wasn't official. It wasn't typed. It was handwritten. Daniel's handwriting. I would have recognized it anywhere. If you're reading this, it means I waited too long. My chest tightened as I kept going. I thought I could fix it before it hurt anyone. I thought I could control it. I was wrong. I stopped breathing. I'm sorry. That was it. No explanation. No names. No truth. Just an apology. I let the paper fall slightly in my hands, staring at nothing now. 15 years. 15 years of marriage. And in the end, I didn't know who he really was. Not completely. Not even close. I thought back to the funeral, to the question I didn't even know I was asking at the time. What would you do if the man you buried was the man you thought you married? Now I had the answer. You don't get closure. You don't get peace. You get fragments. Pieces of truth that don't quite fit together, no matter how hard you try. I looked at Michael one last time. So that's it, I asked, that's the truth. He held my gaze but didn't nod. Didn't confirm. Didn't deny. And somehow that was worse. Because it meant one thing. There were still pieces missing. And maybe there always would be. So let me ask you something. How well do you really know the people closest to you? And if the truth was placed in your hands, would you even want to see it? Because sometimes the truth doesn't bring closure. It just replaces one lie with another. And once you see it, you can't ever unsee it. Conclusion complete.